Two New Orleans Saints rookies, a big-time performance from the defensive line, and of course the X factor of Taysom Hill all have the opportunity to make a huge impact in Sunday's game against the Green Bay Packers. We got all that and a little bit of lagniappe for you on this In Case You Missed It episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? Welcome in to another episode of Locked On Saints, your daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much to all you everydayers out there for making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. Don't forget that you can always subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss the latest episodes. And as always, if you want to keep the conversation going, take part in our exclusive film studies, Q&As, and much more, you can become a Locked On Saints insider by heading over to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSaints. Join a community that I would love for you to be a part of. As always, I'm your host, Ross Jackson, at Ross Jackson Nola on your favorite social media, your New Orleans Saints expert, credentialed member of the media, Saints News Network, Tuesdays on Locked On NFL, and here with you every single Monday through Friday, and then some on Locked On Saints. This In Case You Missed It Saturday episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by our friends at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So today's episode is a bonus episode for the week, just getting you caught up on all of my biggest takes from this week here at Locked On Saints to help you make sure that you're ready for tomorrow's matchup between the New Orleans Saints and the Green Bay Packers. We're going to wrap up today's show with a look at Taysom Hill being the key X factor for this game. We're also going to take a look at Jordan Howden, who seems ready for his big role against the Green Bay Packers. And to kick things off, we're going to focus on the run game for the New Orleans Saints, led off by rookie third-round selection out of TCU, Kendre Miller, who is ready to provide a dynamic rushing attack for the New Orleans Saints in his debut against the Green Bay Packers. Now, I don't know that Kendre Miller is going to finish this game with the most rushing yards or even with the most carries, but he will provide the team something that it hasn't necessarily had so far this season. And that's no slight at all to Jamal Williams. It's just that Kendre Miller is a different kind of back than Jamal Williams, a different kind of back than Tony Jones Jr. Kendre Miller is the guy that we've wanted to see get mixed in with Jamal Williams, but of course Jamal Williams now dealing with a hamstring injury. He's going to be out for a little while. Now the good news is that after this week, Alvin Kamara is back at practice. Alvin Kamara is back on the football field next week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home here in New Orleans. Make sure you go to Gametime to get your tickets for that. But this weekend, up against the Green Bay Packers, the New Orleans Saints will have rookie Kendre Miller making his debut. And one of the things that I wanted to look at was, where's the space that maybe he adds a little bit more dynamic to this New Orleans Saints run game? So far, the New Orleans Saints have rushed 60 times for 203 yards. It's a modest average of 3.4 yards per attempt. Obviously, you want to see the New Orleans Saints averaging more yards per attempt on the ground than that, but remember that the first game was up against the Tennessee Titans, where they were kind of chipping away 11 runs with a lead towards the end of the game. You're just trying to run the clock out at that point. And then, of course, it's a really, really good run game or run defense, and you couldn't get your run game going if you're the New Orleans Saints. But last week, they were much better, much more productive on the ground, as led by, of course, Taysom Hill, who had, I think it was 9 carries for 70-plus rushing yards. And I expect that Taysom Hill will continue to be a part of the run game, but we're going to get to him a little bit later. Focusing on Kendre Miller, what does he add? Well, he adds an outside run game for you, believe it or not. I know that he's a bigger looking back. He is a violent running back, but he is a really good balance of power and speed, something that when we mocked Kendre Miller to the New Orleans Saints several times over the course of the offseason, in addition to, of course, paying attention to a guy like Tajay Spears over in Tennessee. One of the things that we mentioned was that blend of power and speed, or speed and power, is something that's unique for a Kendre Miller. He's got breakaway speed to leave some guys in the dust, but he's also got the ability to welcome contact, lower a shoulder, and, run over some guys if needed. So for New Orleans, one of the things that he can add for you is a little bit more of an outside rushing attack. When I say outside rushing attack, I mean running outside of the tackles. So far, we've seen the Saints rush outside of the tackles a couple of times, 18 times to the right, not including jet sweeps, quarterback sneaks or quarterback scrambles, things like that. And then according to Pro Football Focus, just 7 times to the left side, which is really interesting because Trevor Penning is a mauler in the run game. So do we see a little bit more of that in this game? I certainly think that we'll see more of the outside rushing attack with Kendre Miller there. You're not necessarily relying on Jamal Williams' speed to get around the edge. He can do it, but he's so effective between the tackles that that's where you're going to continue to run him. Same thing for Tony Jones Jr., who is very, very, very successful between the tackles in that game against the Carolina Panthers. 3 rushes right in between the left guard and left tackle. He took those for 13 yards. It's an average of 4.3 yards per carry. 2 first downs going to that direction as well as one of his touchdowns. The other was actually going around the left tackle, 1 rush, 2 yards to get to that touchdown. So for New Orleans, I think that what you're looking at is Kendre Miller gives you the opportunity to be able to have a little bit more of a dynamic. But also remember that the Saints have only targeted position-designated running backs in the passing game 4 times through the first 2 games, 2 receptions for 7 yards. Kendre Miller has the ability to change that for you. There's no doubt that he can catch the football, even though he wasn't asked to do it much when he was at TCU, or really at all when he was at TCU. And that's just no shot at TCU's offense or anything like that. That's just what their offense was. They didn't pass to running backs very often. They did every now and then. They would run the screens, things like that. And that's something that I think you want to see from the New Orleans Saints. They've thrown a couple of screens so far this year, but the majority of them have been to wide receivers. We saw 2 of them thrown to Chris Olave just last week, but for instance. You saw another one thrown to Chris Olave last week. I think 2 thrown to, or rather the first week up against Tennessee Titans. I believe that same week 2 thrown to Rashid Shaheed. It might be the other way around. But we haven't really seen the screen game go to the running backs, and you know that's going to come back with Alvin Kamara next week, but can you also get that started with Kendre Miller? That's another way that you add a little bit more dynamics from your backfield if you're the New Orleans Saints, with getting Kendre Miller back, somebody that will be able to provide that level of productivity, not just as a runner outside the tackles, but also as a receiver out of the backfield. So I think that that's what you're looking for from the New Orleans Saints, is getting a little bit more of that dynamic run game and dynamic backfield play from Kendre Miller, who will be operating not only with Tony Jones Jr., but you have to imagine Taysom Hill will take some snaps, true, as a true halfback, as well as lining up at tight end and lining up at quarterback and lining up at receiver and all the other things, special teams, all the other things that Taysom Hill does. It's another thing that he'll do, not something he does in lieu of the other stuff. So that's the way that I'm looking at it. That's the way that I think that Kendre Miller brings a little bit more dynamic to your backfield. Coming up next, we're going to be taking a look, because we're not done yet, we're going to be taking a look at Jordan Howden, the fact that he looks ready to have an expanded role potentially, and we believe a starting role against the Green Bay Packers. How did that happen? How will he manage it? Why is everyone so confident? We'll break all that down, and I'm going to tell you the key to limiting Jordan Love. We're going to get to both of those things as we continue on and wrap up, or not wrap up. We're not wrapping up just yet. Well, as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This, in case you missed an episode of Locked On Saints, brought to you by friends over at Gametime. Gametime is the place to go to get your tickets for whatever your favorite event might be. You're looking to get to the Saints game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Go ahead. Gametime's got them for you. You want to go ahead and get some tickets to a musical, or maybe something that's happening at the Sanger, or maybe you want to grab some tickets for a concert or something like that. They've got it all. And the best part about Gametime is that they've also got a bunch of deals all the way down to the day of the event, so you don't have to be in a rush either, and you can see the view from your seats before you book. That's one of my favorite features, why I always bring it up. So snag your tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app today, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL, get $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use that promo code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Today's episode also brought to you by our friends at DoorDash. Did you burn that last piece of toast? Come on, we've all done it. So you're looking for a little something to eat later in the evening, and you got one of those really good late night spots that's just a little bit too far away. You don't feel like driving, all that. Don't worry, someone else will take care of it for you. Just head over to DoorDash, place your order, and they will dash that straight to your door. That's where the name comes from, DoorDash. They dash it to your door. That's the way that it works out. You'll get exactly what you ordered, or they'll make it right as well. And that's not always the case, but DoorDash will get that all taken care of for you. If you want even more value, you can save on all of your grocery, your restaurant favorites with $0 delivery on all those that are eligible orders with the Dash Pass membership as well. So go check them out today. Get 50% off of your first order as well over at DoorDash. up to a $20 value when you use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL at checkout. Limited time offer, terms do apply. That's 50% off up to $20, no minimum subtotal, and zero delivery fee on your very first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Don't forget, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for 50% off of your first order with DoorDash. All right, family, continuing on with today's episode of Locked On Saints. Hey, don't forget, we'll have the live postcast not right after, but soon after the game, win or lose for the New Orleans Saints as they take on the Green Bay Packers. I'll be going live right after the, pressers and locker room and all that stuff. I'm going to get all that stuff done as well. And if you want to listen into the game during the matchup, you can catch the Saints and the Packers going up against one another over at SiriusXM. You can download the SiriusXM app and just search Saints. You're listening to the play-by-play, and you might hear a familiar voice in the meanwhile. All right, so as we get things started off here in our second segment, taking a look and catching you up with all the biggest takes from the week, I want to now pivot over to another big-time rookie that has the ability to have a big impact in this game, and that is rookie safety Jordan Howden, who was drafted in the 5th round, spent 5 years at safety with the Minnesota Golden Gophers, came up in San Diego, moved to Vegas, and then had kind of that big culture shock of going from the temperate weather of the West Coast down to the frigid air of Minnesota to play in Minneapolis. And he was a big-time leader the entire time that he did it. And that's one of the things that the New Orleans Saints really, really love about Jordan Howden. Jordan Howden has moved himself into this position because Marcus May and the long-anticipated suspension has finally come down. Now, this came down about when we expected it to. The legal process had just wrapped up for Marcus May for the DUI that stems all the way back to 2021. That legal process just ended as the offseason was ending and the regular season was beginning. Then you have, the independent investigation by the NFL, plus probably an appeal, and then all of a sudden you get the news. So we got the news this week. It's a 3-game suspension. So he'll be good to come back to the New Orleans Saints practice as well as games after the New Orleans Saints road game in Houston. So he'll miss the Packers game, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game, and then that Houston Texans game as well. But he'll be back just in time to get on the road to head over to the New England Patriots. Another game that I'll be at, by the way. As well as the Houston game. So for New Orleans, what you're looking at now is potentially thrusting this rookie into this starting role. And look, we think that this is what's going to happen. There hasn't been an official announcement that he's going to be starting, but he said something the other day in a presser to where he was like, yeah, no, I'm excited for my first start. Tyrann Mathieu mentioned him first before mentioning any other safeties, all that. Joe Woods mentioned that that's kind of the plan, is to get him those first team reps so that he can be ready to start. But there hasn't been an official announcement that says, yes, Jordan Howden is the starter, but we all kind of feel and know and anticipate that will indeed be the case. So if that is the case, why are the New Orleans Saints so confident in him? Well, that leadership ability that I just mentioned in terms of how he represented himself and his program at Minnesota during his time there, didn't leave, stayed, didn't transfer, didn't take the COVID year or anything like that, kept participating and kept competing. Those are all things that speak highly of his character, and also have led to a guy like Marcus Robertson, the New Orleans Saints defensive backs coach, referring to him as a pro. This guy is a professional, and they really, really like the way that he carries himself and the way that he plays. He's got the versatility of a PJ Williams, as I've often been told, and he's got the eyes and vision of a Marcus Williams, but is a sound tackler. And we know the value of sound tackling from the safety position, because if you look back at just week one of the things that Marcus Robertson highlighted for me was the big screen pass to Derrick Henry, 46-yard gain. Who makes a tackle on that as the last line of defense, a potentially touchdown-saving tackle? Marcus May. And that's in a game, the same game, where he got stiff-armed, the Shadow Realm, or the Sunken Place, by Derrick Henry as well. Sorry, Marcus, had to have a little bit of fun there. But to Marcus's credit, most importantly, he rebounded from getting that, from having that stiff arm to making this huge tackle that was probably a 4-point swing. Because if you think about it, he doesn't make that tackle. Derrick Henry stumbles into the end zone. That's 7 points. That drive, because he made that stop, the Saints defense forced a field goal. That's a 4-point swing. Marcus Robertson credits Marcus May with those 4 points, and I think that makes perfect sense. And so being a sound tackler is one of those things that often gets overlooked as a safety until you miss a tackle. And then you go, oh no, that person should be a sound tackler, right? So we can give Jordan Howden the credit of being a sound tackler. And we've already seen him as a sound tackler as well. If you think back to the preseason, some of the special team snaps that he's played, all of those things. The other thing that you look at is his range, right? He is a rangy player. He has played 27 snaps so far for the New Orleans Saints, almost exclusively on defense, though he has taken some first and second down snaps as well in late game situations. He's been the New Orleans Saints dime back. And when they have him do that, they're asking him to be the last line of defense. They often have him 81% of the time being the drop to the middle deep safety. And so clearly they trust him in that role. And that's very similar to the role that he'll be asked to play because Marcus May was the deep middle of the field safety on 59% of his snaps so far this season. Now it'll be a share between Jordan Howden and Tyrann Mathieu, assuming Jordan Howden gets the start. But it seems that he's ready, and it seems that the New Orleans Saints are very confident in his ability to go out there and not just play, not just substitute in, not just be a body, but potentially make an impact as well. The New Orleans Saints do not want to give up more than 20 points, right? They don't want to. They want to keep that streak going. They would like for it to be a streak of 10 points or fewer, but you'll take a streak of 20 points or fewer, especially if the offense gets rolling as well. And if the New Orleans Saints want to limit, so that take was from the Wednesday episode. Kendre Miller has been kind of all throughout the week. Jordan Howden's another one that we've kind of done, all throughout the week as well. But I do want to mention too that if the New Orleans Saints want to limit Jordan Love, or if they want to limit the Green Bay Packers, that doing so would start with limiting Jordan Love. We'll see what happens with Aaron Jones. If Aaron Jones plays, then obviously that becomes a huge focus. He's questionable right now. I assume that he plays. Because that's just how it goes against New Orleans Saints. You know how it is. But you also want to limit Jordan Love. And Jordan Love is tough to limit, not because he's like incredibly talented. I mean, he is incredibly talented, but not because he's this like unstoppable quarterback that's, the next Patrick Mahomes or whatever. But because look, he's one of the least pressured quarterbacks. He's had amongst the most unpressured snaps in the NFL. He's in that category. And he is also in the category of players that gets the ball out on their first read more than anybody else in the NFL, right? So he's also up there. And so that's a good combination that shows you, okay, here's how quickly that the Green Bay Packers have schemed getting the ball out of Jordan Love's hands. So the thing that you want to see from the New Orleans Saints is, A, make him pay for going to his first read, right? If he consistently goes to his first read, and you kind of know where the ball is going, you just have to be ready when you're the defender on the first read. The other thing is, make him hold that dang ball. Make him hold on to it, because if you can make him hold on to it, then the New Orleans Saints pass rush, which we're going to discuss here. I wanted to discuss it here. The New Orleans Saints pass rush, who's going to be going up against very likely replacement level left tackle, replacement level left guard. Hello, Carl Granderson. That's Carl Granderson's side. And Carl Granderson has been feasting all season so far. So if that's the case, make Jordan Love hold on to the ball so that guys like Carl Granderson can get to him. And one of the things that we've noticed with Carl Granderson is that when he gets to the backfield, not only is he getting the sack, but he's getting the ball out. And that's been such a big emphasis for the New Orleans Saints for some time, of impact fumbles, but haven't been able to do it consistently. Well, now all of a sudden, Carl Granderson, who's going to get paid this offseason, and ideally he gets paid to stay in a New Orleans Saints uniform, but is going to get paid this offseason, is going to be able to continue to do that. So force Jordan Love to hold the ball and get to him with the pass rush. That symbiotic relationship between coverage and rush and coverage. The thing that Joe Woods credits for the New Orleans Saints being outstanding as a third down defense so far. Get that going, because that might be the difference between you getting your offense another possession. And if that offense gets rolling early, you're going to want to get them as many possessions as possible. And a big way to get that New Orleans Saints offense rolling early is to get Taysom Hill involved. Let Taysom cook. We're going to break that down as we continue on and wrap up this time today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks. Easiest, most fun, most exciting way to play daily fantasy. And honestly, it's the most exciting way to win money, if I'm just being honest with you. Because look, if you're somebody that prides yourself on your football knowledge, kind of like I do, then you are in a situation here to where you're not going up against a bunch of mystery lineups where they just kind of tell you that you win, they tell you that you lose, and you just kind of have to believe them. This is one to where all the cards are out on the table. It's you versus the house. PrizePicks gives you a bunch of projections for NFL, NBA, MLB, soccer, tennis, hockey, like whatever it is, like college football, whatever it is that you're looking for. PrizePicks will give you a projection for a player or a team or whatever, and all you do is choose whether or not that player is going to come out at more or less than the PrizePicks projection. You think that the Saints defense is going to score more or less than a certain amount of fantasy points? That's the kind of thing that you're doing. It's that Simple. It could never been easier to turn $10 into $250. Go and check them out today. And when you do, make sure that you go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use promo code LockedOnNFL for your first deposit match up to $100. Make sure that promo code's in lowercase. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. Wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Saints. Closing out our In Case You Missed It episode. So we looked at Kendre Miller, Jordan Howden. That's from Tuesday, Wednesday shows, respectively. Friday shows, we got into our keys to victory and the game plan. That's where we highlighted a little bit about Jordan Love and making him hold on to the football. Let's stick with Friday's episode. Let me tell you about the biggest X factor for the New Orleans Saints in this game. And yeah, it's Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill might end up being the deciding factor in this game. Taysom Hill is one of those guys that has an impact. Like, look, you're going to see a lot of people that take to Twitter and social media and whatever. These people that are, out here just to kind of like talk and try to get people mad and whatever. Trolls. That's what I'm looking for. And say, Taysom Hill's overpaid, and Taysom Hill, oh, well, if only the Saints would have spent that $10 million in something that they could need. Well, this is also the guy that leads your team in touchdowns over the course of the past 3 seasons with 23. Like, let's be real here, right? He's also the guy that's second on your team in touchdowns over the course of the last 2 seasons with 14. And so you look at where the Saints offense has been over the course of the past few years, and the one thing that you've been able to say over and over and over again, outside of, oh, I wish that the team was healthy, is why don't they get Taysom Hill more involved? And now, after last week's game against the Carolina Panthers, I don't think there's any way not to get Taysom Hill more involved. 31 snaps on offense, just over 10 snaps. I think it was 11 snaps on special teams as well. And he made such a big difference. And I know people don't like to look at Taysom Hill as a quote unquote game changer, but you have to look at him as an impact player. Because if you're the New Orleans Saints and you're struggling to move the ball, who's the guy that has always helped you move the ball? Taysom Hill. The Saints have an insane record when he touches the ball like a certain number of times and all that stuff. Like, those are the things that you absolutely want to rest your laurels on if you're the New Orleans Saints. Like, after a little while, it's no longer just correlation. There's a little bit of causation there. And so for the New Orleans Saints, going into this game against the Green Bay Packers, utilizing the former Green Bay Packer, Taysom Hill, which, by the way, if you want to know why a lot of Packers fans get so mad about why Taysom Hill is still in the NFL and is playing this unique role and has kind of revolutionized the New Orleans Saints offense in a way, it's because they had him and didn't get to keep him because Sean Payton plucked him up. And now he's still here in New Orleans. And Dennis Allen, Pete Carmichael, without Sean Payton, are finding new ways to get him involved in the offense. This is the first time that we've ever seen. Sean Payton was here with Taysom Hill for several years and never really operated Taysom Hill as a fullback or I'm sorry, not a fullback. I'm sorry, a halfback, right? A running back, tailback, if you will. Saints are doing that, right? They've used him as a fullback and as a lead blocker and all those things. But in terms of actually having him back there as a running back, we haven't really seen that very much. Now, all of a sudden, the Saints just add that wrinkle out of nowhere. That's not out of nowhere. They knew what they were doing. And Pete Carmichael even said after the first week against Tennessee Titans that they kind of looked back at the game and said, you know what, we got to find a way to get Taysom Hill more involved in this. And so what they do? 31 snaps for him on offense and several touches, several opportunities for him to impact the game. So sure, you don't want to call him a game, somebody doesn't want to call him a game-changing player. Whatever, fine. I concede to that very ridiculous argument, right? He's an impact player. And he's a player that can impact this team, this game, and get the New Orleans Saints from 2-0 to 3-0. He's that important. I mean, look at the Saints' record when he plays. Look at the Saints' scores when he plays. Look at what Taysom Hill does on this offense and tell me that he's not valuable. Come on. Get him the football. And I think the New Orleans Saints absolutely will in this game. I think he's going to be a big part of this game. I think he's going to be a big part of the game plans moving forward as long as he stays healthy. The big thing is, can you balance giving him the ball more and keeping him healthy, right? Because he takes a lot of hits, takes a lot of shots, all those other things. He welcomes contact, all that. So there's a balance. There's a balance between keeping him from getting hurt, keeping him from being overworked, and in working, and getting the work that will end up helping you win games. And you got to trust the New Orleans Saints to get that done. And you got to trust Taysom Hill to help with that, right? All right, lastly here, going back to all the way back to Monday's postcast episode, The New Orleans Saints offense needs to start faster so that it's not wasting the remarkable performance of this New Orleans Saints defense. Now, the Saints offense has not wasted the defense, right? They've won 2 games. They're winning 100%. They're 2-0 for the first time in a decade. So we can't say that the offense is wasting the defense. But one less score, and all of a sudden we're talking about this team a very different way, right? In each of those games. So if you're the New Orleans Saints, the thing that you've got to be looking at here is how do you get your offense percolating, if you will, in the first half, as opposed to sort of the stagnant nature that it's come out with in the first half and then making the second half adjustments. And kudos in the second half adjustments, by the way. I mean, they've gotten it done. There's no doubt about that. So I'm not sitting here saying, well, the New Orleans Saints are bad or anything like that. No. But you do have some questions to answer on the offensive line and, of course, on offense as a whole. And sometimes those two things are correlative, right? Sometimes those two things go together. Where you see, shot plays that are developing downfield, but Derek Carr doesn't have the time to take advantage of those shot plays because the offensive line has given up pressure. But the Saints did cut offensive line pressure down by half. According to Pro Football Focus, at least 24 pressures against the Tennessee Titans allowed, 12 against the Carolina Panthers allowed. So trending in the right direction, but still some things to clean up. Still 4 sacks in both of those games. And what we've seen is 4 sacks in the first half against Tennessee, 3 sacks in the first half against Carolina, and then 1 sack in the second half against Carolina. So you want to see more protection for Derek Carr, and you want to see this New Orleans Saints be able to, if they're going to uncork it, if they're going to open up the offense, you have to give it time in order to develop. We're seeing a lot more of these longer developing plays than we're accustomed to seeing. Maybe we see a little bit more of the quick passing stuff, especially with Kendre Miller getting involved. Maybe he opens some of that up for you from the backfield, but also the quick passes to Michael Thomas and all that. Michael Thomas made some nitty gritty catches against the Carolina Panthers, and no one's talking about it. But Michael Thomas is kind of the only reason why the ball moved for the New Orleans Saints in the first half against Carolina. And he took some shots, he took some hits over the middle, got right back up, got back in that huddle, got back out on that field and continued to go, and then nearly got into a fight with Derek Brown in the tunnel. He's grinded, right? He's doing his thing. Michael Thomas is out here doing his thing. And he's not, complaining about usage or anything like that, like we've seen other receivers do in other situations. He's perfectly happy with the way that everything's going with the New Orleans Saints right now. And it's awesome to see. And so let him help you get this offense running. Go to the quick game for a little bit. Get the offense comfortable. Get the offense in rhythm. And of course, get that run game going. And maybe that's where you get an opportunity for Kendre Miller to have that dynamic attack that we were talking about from the backfield. Maybe that's a point to where, you grease the wheel a little bit with a Kendre Miller and what he can do. So that's the biggest thing for New Orleans is get out to a fast start against the Green Bay Packers and get out to a fast start moving forward, right? We still haven't seen an opening drive touchdown in New Orleans here for a little while. Maybe you get one of those. Those types of moments make big time differences for the momentum. Momentum is real in football games. I know some people will tell you it's not. Momentum, confidence, these things are real. And so get that momentum, get that confidence built up right out of the gate. I'd love to see the New Orleans Saints start with the football against Green Bay, march down, score their touchdown, or have the defense get them the ball back and then do the same thing. But an opening drive touchdown, I think, would be huge for the New Orleans Saints. Build that confidence, build that momentum, and be able to finally get off to that fast start to be able to help take advantage of what this defense, this incredible defense, has been bringing you. All right. Coming up, the next time that you'll see me, enjoy your weekend, enjoy some college football today. We will see you again Sunday after the game, after pressers, after locker room, all that stuff. For all you everydayers, appreciate you making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. We'll be back with you for our postcast after the Saints in Green Bay game. I appreciate you as always, making me a part of your day, part of your routine, for saying yes to me and the show. As always, if you see me, say hi. If you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know what the family's doing. Let me know how you living. Let me know how you momming them. And trust Who Dat Nation, I'll holla at you.